Work hard that we would be starting on time, independent of how many people were in the room, because we need to make sure that everybody catches the bus on time to go to the gala dinner tonight. So I would like to start now. We have 5 presentations, and as the buses are leaving already at 6:30, I would say that we will aim at ending this session at 5:45, which gives you 45 minutes to rush up. So I would like our speakers to be speaking for 20 minutes, and then we will have 5 minutes of questions at the end. So our first speaker is Jaobi Ataun, who comes from ICANN, and he's going to talk about DNS, business and security, a role for academia. Jaobi, please, and I will show you when you have 5 minutes left to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. My name is Jaobi Ataun. I'm the Stakeholder Engagement and Operation Manager for Africa. And Pierre Dandjinou, who is the Vice President for Stakeholder Engagement in Africa, was supposed to be here, but as I said in the morning, he could not be here. So we don't have too much time. I know most of us. Ma présentation, I'm going to switch to French. Because the other slide they are in French. Yeah. Donc je vais continuer la présentation, je vais aller doucement à cause de l'interprétation. Donc les autres slides sont en français, donc je préfère parler directement en français. Nous allons parler brièvement de ICANN, l'industrie dans le domaine, la sécurité du DNS et le rôle du monde académique. Donc nous allons être brefs pour pouvoir échanger. Alors, ICANN, beaucoup d'entre nous connaissent déjà ICANN. En fait, c'est l'organisation qui s'occupe de la gestion, la coordination des noms de domaine, des adresses IP et des paramètres de protocole. Donc, c'est important pour nous tous vraiment de connaître ICANN, et nous remercions infiniment les organisateurs de nous avoir donné cette opportunité. Alors, vous aurez les slides, donc je ne vais pas mettre trop de temps sur ce que c'est qu'ICANN. Et nous parlons beaucoup du modèle multi-acteur de ICANN, et ce slide, en fait, c'est ça que ça montre. Et donc, nous avons les différentes organisations de soutien que nous appelons les SO, et puis les comités consultatifs qui regroupent les différentes parties prenantes. Alors, vous avez aussi ce slide que vous aurez le temps de voir beaucoup plus en détail, mais ce sur quoi je voudrais insister, c'est le rôle des revendeurs, le rôle des registraires, qui sont les registraires en anglais, et les registres, qui sont les registrices. Et donc, ces deux groupes jouent des rôles importants, et parce que je vais en parler après. Donc, nous avons les registraires, nous avons les registres, et nous avons les revendeurs aussi, et éventuellement les utilisateurs, bien les registrants qui utilisent les noms de domaine. Donc nous avons autour de tout ce monde dans l'écosystème, nous avons bien sûr ISOC, nous avons, pour citer certains d'entre eux, nous avons les RIR qui sont les registres régionaux. Pour Afrique, nous avons au niveau de l'Afrique, nous avons Afrique. Et donc, vous aurez le temps de voir ce slide plus en profondeur après. Alors, nous avons dans ce business des noms de domaine, nous avons les registres et les registraires qui jouent un rôle très important. Donc, les registres, c'est à eux que ICANN délègue les noms de domaine de premier niveau. Donc, pour les génériques, le .com, le .org. Et nous avons aujourd'hui un nouveau programme de noms de domaine génériques. Donc initialement on avait 22, les .com, les .org, les .info, etc. Mais aujourd'hui, quand la délégation, le processus de délégation va se terminer, on aura plus de 1000 et quelques nouveaux noms de domaine génériques. Donc pour les pays, nous avons aussi les noms de domaine pays, le SN pour le Sénégal, FR pour la France, etc. Maintenant, les registres dont je parle, c'est eux qui sont accrédités par ICANN. Parce que les registres accrédités par ICANN, c'est eux qui gèrent les noms de domaine génériques, les registres. Donc au niveau de l'Afrique, nous avons seulement 13 registres. Donc cela c'est juste pour faire une comparaison, pour dire le rôle que nous jouons dans ce marché des noms de domaine. Donc c'est vraiment un grand marché et nous ne jouons pas encore au niveau de l'Afrique un très grand rôle. Et les registraires qui sont accrédités par ICANN, donc les registraires accrédités par ICANN, c'est des registraires qui travaillent avec les registres qui ont la délégation des noms de domaine génériques. Donc nous avons seulement 10 registraires accrédités par l'Afrique. Donc c'est la liste qui est sur le slide qui suit. Web for Africa, Internet Solution, Coelcom c'est basé au Sénégal ici, Afrique Register au Burundi, Ghana.com, Genius au Maroc, Diéyi Matrice en Afrique du Sud, Opalingo au Nigeria, Ati en Tunisie, Domaine Name Service encore en Afrique du Sud. Donc nous n'avons que 10, c'est pour dire que dans ce marché des noms de domaine, nous avons vraiment encore beaucoup à faire au niveau de l'Afrique et surtout, je vais parler maintenant du DNS parce que en fait c'est de ça que nous voulons parler aussi. En fait le DNS c'est le Domain Name System ou bien le système des noms de domaine. Alors, donc c'est juste le système qui traduit les noms de domaine que nous tapons en adresse IP. Donc les équipements qui utilisent l'adresse pour faire cette correspondance entre les noms de domaine et le numéro pour atteindre un équipement. Donc c'est ce système de nom de domaine que nous utilisons qui est un système important pour vraiment faire fonctionner Internet. Alors les criminels vont abuser de tout service Internet au protocole et dès qu'ils ont l'opportunité. Donc nous avons ces criminels aussi qui jouent un rôle important dans le mauvais sens bien sûr. Alors que font-ils? Ils injectent des requêtes malveillantes afin d'exploiter les serveurs de notre domaine pour de perturber la résolution des noms. Donc les serveurs de notre domaine, donc c'est ces serveurs qui nous permettent de jouer ce rôle dans ce système des noms de domaine. Donc nous avons les serveurs de notre domaine et puis le système de notre domaine qui est le DNS. Donc des fois on peut dire DNS, Domain Name Server and System, donc des fois on peut faire la confusion. Mais il y a le système de notre domaine et les serveurs qui nous permettent de jouer ce rôle. Donc les criminels aussi, ils injectent des réponses rusées pour empoisonner les caches de certains serveurs qui sont au niveau des fournisseurs, bien au niveau de certaines organisations. Donc ces criminels peuvent aussi empoisonner, c'est-à-dire perturber l'information qui existe là-bas pour que les gens qui veulent accéder à un équipement ou bien à un site web ou bien à une ressource quelque part, les gens là ne puissent pas vraiment accéder à la ressource correcte. Donc, ils utilisent aussi le DNS comme un canal caché pour l'exploitation de données ou pour la mise à jour des logiciels malveillants. Alors, donc en bas, j'ai dit que les actions de ces criminels ont un impact très important sur le fonctionnement de l'Internet. Donc c'est très très important de vraiment veiller à ce que le DNS ou le système de notre domaine marche correctement. Alors c'est de là où j'ai dit qu'est-ce que le monde académique peut faire dans cette situation. Nous avons certains codes pays ou bien CCTL, des Country Code Top Level Domain, qui sont les codes ISO attribués à chaque pays. Par exemple, le point S7 pour le Sénégal, BF pour le Burkina, par exemple. Donc, j'ai dit que certains de ces CCTL ont été attribués, ou bien délégués, disons, c'est le mot, délégués à des universitaires, parce qu'au début, c'était des volontaires vraiment qui ont eu ce nom de domaine. Donc, ils ont vraiment joué un rôle de pionnier et dans le développement de l'Internet au niveau national. Et certains de ces universitaires continuent par jouer ce rôle. Nous avons le cas du Sénégal, par exemple, ou bien de la Mozambique, d'autres pays, où le monde académique joue vraiment un rôle important dans la gestion des noms de domaine au niveau national. Mais ce que nous avons constaté aussi, c'est que nous avons besoin de faire mieux au niveau de ces registres qui sont en charge de ces noms de domaine de premier niveau au niveau pays. Alors, j'ai dit aussi sur ce slide que les universités peuvent avoir des espaces de test pour le protocole IPv6 et pour le protocole DNS7. Nous avons pris, et non c'est vrai, un document, un accord qui a été signé entre l'association des universités africaines et puis Afrinic, qui est le registre africain en charge de la gestion des adresses IP et des numéros de système autonome. Donc il y a un accord qui permet aux universités aux établissements d'enseignement supérieur d'avoir des blocs d'adresse IP à des coûts réduits. En fait, ça ne se vend pas, mais c'est des frais qui permettent de faire la maintenance de tout ce système. Mais malheureusement, nous avons constaté que certaines universités ne sont pas informées, et même ceux qui sont informés, ils ne vont pas à la recherche de ces blocs d'adresse IP pour leur équipement. Donc c'est encore un appel que nous lançons pour le monde académique, que nous sommes certains que chaque établissement d'enseignement supérieur a un certain nombre d'équipements auxquels on veut attribuer les adresses IP. Donc, du moins un /24, je crois que Afrique est là pour répondre à tout ça là après, peut donner, si on justifie, les blocs d'adresse IP aux établissements d'enseignement supérieur. Donc ça évite à ces établissements d'être vraiment autonomes vis-à-vis de leurs fournisseurs d'accès Internet, et donc ne pas avoir fait certaines configurations chaque fois qu'on veut changer le fournisseur d'accès. Donc l'accès à des blocs d'adresse IP, donc c'est important de se rapprocher d'Afrique, que nous ayons nos blocs d'adresse IP. L'inconvénient aussi, c'est que quand vous allez à des réunions d'Afrique aujourd'hui, Afrique fait des réunions pour discuter politique, vous avez souvent des membres de la communauté qui proposent des politiques à la place des universitaires. Donc ceux qui ont assisté aux précédentes réunions d'Afrique, vous allez voir que des gens ont amené des politiques et les universitaires sont là. Bon, je ne sais pas vraiment si c'est les universitaires qui les avaient envoyés, mais les gens défendaient vraiment ces politiques. Donc je crois que c'est important, parce que ça donne l'impression que nous avons assez de blocs d'adresse IP et que vraiment l'Afrique, ça reste beaucoup. Mais je crois que si chaque établissement d'enseignement supérieur va à la demande de ces blocs, on pourrait vraiment améliorer d'abord la connectivité, pas la connectivité, mais l'utilisation de l'Internet. Alors, il y a aussi les tests de déploiement d'IPv6. Aujourd'hui, beaucoup de structures gouvernementales, fournisseurs, prestataires ne veulent pas aller avec le protocole IPv6 pour plusieurs raisons. Des fois, c'est question d'équipement, et des fois même, c'est que peut-être nous avons peur de faire la mise en œuvre de ces protocoles. Nous pensons que les universités aujourd'hui peuvent vraiment jouer un rôle important pour les tests d'IPv6, des plateformes, avoir des plateformes. Nous avons des labos aussi, donc je crois que les universités peuvent jouer un grand rôle aujourd'hui pour la mise en œuvre du protocole IPv6. Et ça pourrait vraiment peut-être aider le secteur privé dans des partenariats. Il y a aussi le développement des politiques à l'interne. Quand je parle de politique, c'est les documents de politique en fait. Nous avons constaté que les universités sont très absentes dans les politiques au niveau de ICANN. Les réunions de l'ICANN sont des réunions vraiment ouvertes. Et comme je l'ai dit ce matin, quand nous avons nos réseaux d'éducation de recherche, donc dans la mise en œuvre de ces régions, nous avons l'accès à l'Internet aussi qui est facilité. Donc on pourrait participer à toutes ces réunions et contribuer aux politiques. J'ai donné l'exemple, le deuxième bullet, c'est la transition AYANA, la transition de la supervision des fonctions AYANA, qui est un événement majeur, parce que, comme vous le savez, les fonctions AYANA, qui sont des fonctions exécutées par un département de ICANN, il y a une supervision du NTIA, du département du commerce américain. Donc cette supervision est là, mais il y avait, le gouvernement américain en 2014 a demandé qu'il y ait une proposition de la communauté pour remplacer cette supervision des fonctions AYANA par le département du commerce, qui était très importante. Mais nous avons constaté que le monde académique, le monde universitaire a encore été absent. Bon, c'est vrai, il faut le souligner, certaines universités au niveau de l'Afrique ont organisé du webinaire, la Mauritanie par exemple et d'autres pays ont organisé des sessions pour communiquer sur cet événement. Donc j'ai noté aussi qu'il est important que les universitaires, nos étudiants, on les incite à participer aux travaux au niveau de certains groupes de travail et au niveau de l'ITF, qui est le Internet Engineering Task Force. Donc il y a beaucoup de choses qui se font là-bas. Les tests comme les documents comme les RFC, les Requests for Comment, je crois qu'il y a seulement un qui a été initié par quelqu'un de l'île Maurice, mais je crois que c'est des documents. Des fois, ce n'est pas aussi très technique, mais il faut que nous nous impliquions dans ça. Alors, j'ai aussi dit pour la sécurité du business, les enseignants, les chercheurs étudiants doivent vraiment adhérer au groupe de travail sur la sécurité. Il y a beaucoup de groupes de travail. Quand vous allez sur le site de ICANN, etc., vous allez voir qu'il y a plusieurs groupes de travail. Il y a aussi le SSAC, qui est aussi un comité consultatif qui travaille sur la sécurité. J'ai dit qu'il est aussi important de participer, même si c'est à distance, pendant les 3 réunions de la GEANT, donc on a changé de formule maintenant, il y a la réunion A, B, C. La réunion A et la réunion C, il y a des sessions où on a toute une journée qu'on appelle Tech Day, donc on discute des questions techniques, et aussi des sessions sur le DNSSEC. Donc j'ai dit aussi qu'il faut déployer le DNSSEC pour les universités qui ont leur propre serveur de résolution des noms. Je crois qu'il faut déployer le DNSSEC, c'est important. Nous organisons aussi au niveau de certains pays des ateliers que nous appelons DNS Roadshow. Donc, dès que nous faisons dans ces pays, nous essayons de approcher les universités. C'est important d'y participer. Les modules de formation sur le DNS et le DNSSEC. Nous, quand moi j'ai fait mon école d'ingénieur, on n'avait pas ces modules de formation. Aujourd'hui, je ne sais pas si il y a ça dans les modules. Donc, c'est important qu'on ait ces modules quand les ingénieurs sortent aujourd'hui, qu'ils soient en mesure de, quand on parle de déploiement de DNS ou bien du protocole DNSSEC, on doit être en mesure. Donc, nous voyons que nous avons, au niveau du monde académique, un rôle très très important à jouer. Et aussi l'hébergement des copies des serveurs racines. Donc, aujourd'hui, c'est possible d'avoir aussi une copie du serveur racine, dont le serveur hébergé que coordonne ICANN, c'est le serveur L. Donc, vous savez que les serveurs racines ont des noms. Donc, si vous êtes intéressé, donc, il suffit juste, ICANN va assister les établissements d'enseignement supérieur qui veulent vraiment héberger une copie du serveur L chez eux. Donc, c'est pas beaucoup de travail, et l'avantage c'est que ça permet d'améliorer la résolution des noms, et puis ça c'est une façon aussi de contribuer à la sécurité. Donc plus nous avons de copies de serveurs racines, en plus on va limiter l'effet que peut avoir une attaque de masse, disons vers le serveur racine. Donc c'est important. Donc la copie de serveur racine, c'est quelque chose que nous devons aussi faire au niveau de nos établissements. Alors, j'ai dit aussi que la recherche est importante. J'ai mis un lien dans le document. C'est un cabinet qui a fait une recherche, et les résultats permettent de savoir les freins pour le développement de l'Internet. Nous disons que les établissements d'enseignement supérieur doivent beaucoup travailler dans le domaine de la recherche aujourd'hui, et ça contribuera au développement de l'Internet, surtout au niveau affaires de l'Internet en Afrique. En conclusion, je dirais que l'ICANN va continuer son engagement avec le monde universitaire, et nous sommes convaincus que cette communauté a un rôle important à jouer pour la sécurité du système des noms de domaine et pour le développement de l'industrie des noms de domaine. Donc, je vous remercie beaucoup. J'ai quelques flyers sur ICANN que je vais laisser, qu'on va prendre. Et donc, je vous remercie pour votre attention. Merci.
Thank you very much. You were very fast, 3 minutes faster than the 20 minutes. So is there a question to Xiaobi? Yes, we have a question in the back was first, and then you please, but first in the back. Il y a un microphone.
Allô? Oui, je voudrais féliciter donc Yaobi pour sa présentation. J'ai juste une petite question en rapport avec Dot Africa. Qu'en est-il de Dot Africa? On l'avait créé il y a quelques années, on n'entend plus parler, et tout à l'heure il a parlé donc de nom de domaine. Alors est-ce qu'on peut parler de l'avenir de Dot Africa, ou bien c'est fini, on met une croix dessus? Merci.
Son nom est Monsieur Lamine. Oui. En fait, la question de Dot Africa, c'est Dot Africa, c'est un nom de domaine. Quand ICANN a lancé un nouveau programme de nom de domaine générique, le Dot Africa faisait partie des noms que 2 compagnies voulaient gérer. Les noms de domaine, c'est du business. Quand vous avez délégué, on vous délègue un nom de domaine, vous faites du business avec. Donc il y avait 2 compagnies, il y a DC et Connect, et puis il y avait ZACR, 2 sociétés qui voulaient gérer le point Africa. Donc le point Africa, c'est un nom de domaine géographique qui est lié à un continent, donc il y a certains critères. En fait, pour résumer, Africa n'a pas eu, disons, eu l'autorisation de gérer le point Africa et c'est ZACR. Et Africa a porté plainte, est parti à la justice. À ICANN, c'est la justice, les avocats sont là pour jouer leur rôle. Donc jusque-là, à un moment donné, Africa, d'ici, la compagnie DCA n'a pas eu gain de cause parce qu'il fallait certains critères et certains soutiens des États africains qui étaient plutôt du côté de ZACR. Finalement, ICANN a décidé tout récemment, après le conseil d'administration, d'autoriser la délégation du point Africa à ZACR. DCA a encore saisi la justice et la justice a encore ordonné à ICANN de ne pas déléguer, d'attendre jusqu'à une session qui aura lieu en avril pour avoir la suite. Donc c'est la situation. DCA pense que elle aussi, c'est elle qui devait gérer ça. Donc en fait c'est la situation. Donc c'est pas perdu. Donc c'est tout.
Merci. Ousmane, if I could ask you to keep your question and then we go and continue now. So let me thank you again, Jalvi, for your presentation. Our next speaker is Diéyi Diouf. Oops. Diéyi Diouf, are you in the room? No? Does somebody know him? No? Not here. Good. Well, we definitely will have time for your question then, Ousmane. So, but then I would like to invite Margareth Gfrerer for her presentation. And this is about just-in-time teaching, the state-of-the-art of a blended learning and teaching approach. Okay. While Margaret is setting up, the person who was asking the question, could you repeat your name, please, for the rapporteur again, and your affiliation, the gentleman in the back? The hidden microphone. If you could just say your name and your affiliation.
Ok, je m'appelle Elage Maman Lamino, je viens de Ouattara, West African Telecom Regulators Assembly. Merci.
Yes, please, Ousmane, your question.
Je suis Ousmane Ly du Mali, Maliren. Ma question est par rapport à quelle est la différence entre ICANN et l'Internet des gouvernements. Je pensais qu'il y avait eu un groupe de gouvernance de l'Internet où les gouvernements devaient entrer. Alors qu'en est-il? Parce que ça me permet de rebondir sur la question de l'autre, parce que les gouvernements se sont mêlés de cette affaire, c'est la raison pour laquelle notre Afrique on n'a pas vu le point africain. Merci.
En fait, au niveau de ICANN, le draft que j'ai mis, il y a des comités qu'on appelle des comités consultatifs, et il y a un comité qui s'appelle le GAC, Governmental Advisory Committee. Donc au niveau du GAC, il y a un représentant de chaque pays dans le GAC. Et le GAC, c'est aussi un des organes qui donne son avis, spécialement pour les zones géographiques, pour déléguer des noms de domaine, certains noms de domaine, ce qui sont des noms de domaine liés aux zones géographiques, il faut l'avis des États. Donc la relation les gouvernements et ICANN, donc les gouvernements sont représentés dans un comité qui s'appelle le GAC. Donc ça, c'est la relation. Donc chaque fois qu'il y a des décisions, des documents de politique à adopter, le GAC, qui regroupe les gouvernements, peut aussi donner son avis. Donc le GAC avait donné à l'époque un avis sur le point Africa. Donc c'est un peu ça. Et comme c'est un autre domaine qui est lié à un continent, il fallait certains documents et les deux parties, c'est ça qui a causé. Donc d'autres collègues, DCA dit qu'elle continue pas à poursuivre en justice, mais il y a des étapes et ICANN veut toujours respecter la procédure. C'est pourquoi ça continue. On va attendre encore le 6 avril pour voir ce que la justice va dire.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, question please.
Yeah, hold on. I'd just like to check here how we're getting on. Not yet, okay. Yes, in the blue shirt, please. In the back in the blue shirt. You also wear blue. Afterwards.
Thank you. I'm Diéyi Diouf I'm Diéyi from the Internet Society. I have rather a comment. Yovi indicated about IETF, and I would like to say that there is an initiative that we are working on with Afran, that is Wakran, Afran, and UbuntuNet, to promote the African participation in IETF, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force. This is one area where African participation has been very low, and we hope that the research and education network people can participate in that initiative. We will say more in the next few months. I just want to give a heads up so that, and if there are people who are interested in this initiative, I would like to ask to contact me or Bubaka so that we can discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And a question over here.
Yeah, my name is Sidi, I'm from Mali. Okay, let's tell that in French. So, mon nom est Sidi Soumaré, je suis du Mali. Donc, je voudrais poser la question à ICANN par rapport au point d'échange Internet. Je voudrais savoir, est-ce que ICANN intervient dans la mise en place des points d'Internet échange dans les différents pays africains? Parce que dans mon pays, jusqu'à présent, ce point n'existe pas. Et entre différents services providers, les clients sont obligés de monter jusqu'en France pour pouvoir communiquer entre deux clients. Donc je voudrais savoir, est-ce qu'ICANN intervient dans la mise en place des points d'Internet d'échange? Si oui, et comment? Et quelle est la situation actuelle? Merci.
Oui, ICANN n'intervient pas dans la mise en œuvre des points d'échange. En fait, c'est un concept très simple aussi. Quand vous avez les opérateurs, l'objectif c'est de garder le trafic local. En fait, c'est l'objectif premier. Donc, ISOC a travaillé avec l'Union africaine. David va confirmer sur un projet Axis. Donc, pour appuyer les États. Donc, je crois que vous pouvez vous rapprocher de David Bekele de ISOC à la fin de la session. Donc, s'il y a un appui à apporter au Mali, il va vous donner l'information. Merci.
Thank you. We are ready now?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Margaret.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm here as a lecturer working with e-learning, e-teaching since the late 90s. Currently, I'm in Ethiopia with the Education Strategy Center as a scientist, education scientist. But here the presentation is what I have experienced the last decades in e-learning and e-teaching especially. And the approach is just-in-time teaching, and this topic came up because especially in Ethiopia it's really of special need, why I will then explain afterwards once I have introduced you to the just-in-time teaching. Before I start my presentation, I have to say that I am overwhelmed by all that what I have learned in the last days It's quite a lot. I'm an economist. That means I'm not from the field of engineering, but I apply that, or I try to apply that what engineers have invented and engineers have introduced. In brief, I will introduce you to the just-in-time teaching approach, then I move on to definitions and understandings, and then to the core instrument of just-in-time teaching, and then of course the benefits, justifications and the effects what just-in-time teaching have, and then I wrap up with the conclusion. As a teacher, as a lecturer, I'm all damn driven, what should my students learn for being prepared for the future? It's the burning question. I assume it's the question of all teachers, and all teachers will respond differently to this question. However, we face same requirements. That from the labor market first, because now a core indicator of education or in the higher education sector is employability. Then of course the students' requirements, the parents' requirements, then the public administration. Then we have the frame set by the institutions through the curricula, the syllabi. Very often we have not been involved in developing the curricula and syllabi. We have to take it as it is, or as they are. Then, of course, our own employment contracts. Either we are public servants or we are lecturers on individual contract basis. It makes a huge difference then how we lecture, and especially on the content we lecture. Why I can say that? Because especially at universities of applied sciences, a lot of lecturers coming from industry, they just have an assignment for one specific lecture, and of course they bring a lot of experience with them to the students. If we have the public servants as lecturers, they don't have the access to industry, and of course they will lecture in a completely different way. Of course, if it's university with a research focus, they lecture again in a different way. It makes a huge difference. Then we have the dynamic approaches, partly through the economic development of countries, political situations, and of course as lecturers we have to respond to that in a very flexible way. And then of course what I mentioned before already with the employment contracts, it all then depends on our own experience. Do we have experience from industry? Don't we have experience from industry? In Ethiopia, for example, we have a lot of lecturers, they are bachelor graduates. Because in Ethiopia, the higher education sector grew rapidly in the last 10 years, and now they don't have the lecturers what they should have. That means a lot of bachelor graduates starting lecturing freshmen. Our master graduates, they have never worked in industry, they have never been part of a research team, they have no experience how research is, because they did the master in a fast track program, because they have to have the qualification of the master certificate. That means not the research is that what qualifies one for teaching right now in Ethiopia, but the certificate. Of course we have to see the situation. It will then change the situation maybe in a few years' time when we have enough graduates, master graduates, if we have enough PhDs, and then research can come up, and the lecturers of course will have a different quality than they have right now. The objective of this research is first of all the question, is there a way out of the current dilemma? We want to educate our students in the best way, but we have so many restrictions. It's not just me as a lecturer, but so many lecturers. That means we have to see the young lecturers. We have to see the bachelor graduates which have now, who have now to lecture the freshmen. We have to see the master graduates who have no experience at all in research. We have to see that as well. Then we have to explore the suitability of just-in-time teaching. Can we make a change through just-in-time teaching? Is this a strategy which could be suitable? And then to find how we can cope with the situation, with the curricula. Very often we as lecturers, we are not happy with the curricula, but we have to accept, we think we have to do more, we have to give our students more, but the curricula and the syllabi are framing our activities, and here is also maybe just-in-time teaching gives us more freedom to train students, to educate students that they are suitable for the labor market right now. Just-in-time is a buzzword coming from industry, primarily from automotive industry. Now we apply this in the higher education sector. And the just-in-time refers here as well as an industry, the delivery in time. Delivery, in this case, the delivery of knowledge in time. What does this mean? I will then later on explain. If we start with teaching, and nowadays, especially in Europe, we see that students become more demanding. How should the lecture be? What should they learn? What are the requirements? And searching on that, if there is literature, there is very little literature on that. Of course, a lot of literature is referring to the primary literature. That means we have a lot of secondary literature, but very, very little of primary literature. And the one I'm referring here is from Chickering and German from 87. It's quite old already, but it's still valid like the days of 87. And what is the important part? Unfortunately, you cannot see this here, but it's the increasing of student interaction with the instructors, with the lecturers. It's about developing reciprocally and I not even can read it, and cooperation among the students. And we have then encouraging in active learning. We have providing prompt feedback. Students expect that lectures are available for them, that they provide feedback, that they provide guidance. Students expect that they are encouraged to spend their time for certain tasks, for learning. They expect communication with the lecturer, and it's difficult to read. But when I'm comparing all that, it's exactly the same what students demand today from their lecturers. It's not very different. It's just a difference in the means. Nowadays, students expect that lecturer respond on their emails. Students expect that if they have a platform, if they have a forum, that lecturers are also on the platform, that lecturers are also responding in the forum. And this was not in 87. In 87, the lecturer was a bit more dominant than nowadays. But we have then another point what we have to comply with as a lecturer. this is the composition of knowledge. And this is even older than the principles of good teaching. And this comes from 56. And a lot of secondary literature is referring to that, but there is very, very little which comes later than 56 as primary literature to the composition of knowledge. What is the composition of knowledge? We have here the cognitive domain and we have the affective domain. What means cognitive? Knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. This we know as lecturers: knowledge, comprehension, application. These are the three minimum requirements what we expect from our students. Of course, then the analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, this is then topping up the knowledge as such. Affective domain, we have the receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, internalizing. These are that what we expect from our students. But we have also to guide the students that they can comply with that. And previously, in '87, of course they had enough time to teach students. Nowadays, curricula are very tense. Time is very tense. It's more for communication and less for learning. How can we bring our students to the level that they really have the knowledge? In classroom, we don't have the time anymore. In classroom, we have to work in the collaborative way. We have to force students for presentation, for teamwork, for discussions. There is no time anymore for learning, practicing, exercising. And just-in-time teaching allows now the students, allows now the lecturers to equip the students with the necessary knowledge. How this will be done comes later, once I have explained what are the means for just-in-time teaching nowadays. And for just-in-time teaching nowadays, it's e-learning. And if we go for e-learning, we have to see it in the simplest way what we can find. And the simplest way we can find is given more or less by UNESCO in 2001. Again, an old source I refer to, but there is nothing better I could find. And here it's, UNESCO is saying, e-learning is more than just online distance education. Any program that uses ICT to enhance the learning process may be considered to fall into the category e-learning. It is in particular the use of the internet and the web in the teaching and learning process at all levels. That means e-learning is even if I communicate with my students per email. I send them the tasks, they send me their responses. If we have a platform, even better. But very often we are not in the position that we have platforms available, that we have Moodle. It's easy to register on Moodle, but do we have then the sources to download that, to have access? Do we have the programs available? Do we have the internet resources? Do we have 24 hours electricity that we can do that? Sometimes we don't have. We have to use, or we have to adjust to the situation what we find. And on the other side, if we focus now on the MOOCs, this is business. We cannot, as lecturer, we cannot refer to MOOCs, except we are in info business and we sell our own courses. But if we are lecturers, for example, in Ethiopia, I have been lecturer for 14 years, also in Indonesia, we could not afford on that. We had to use what was available and how it was available. What are now the sources, or what is the key for success for just-in-time teaching. First of all, we have to know the principles of good teaching. We refer on that. We have to see the taxonomy from Bloom, where we have the cognitive and we have the affective domains. We have to structure lectures in a very well situation that are well formed, that we can in a good form, that we have that we know what we want to achieve with this lecture. We have to be very clear what is the knowledge our students should have after this lecture. What kind of comprehension should they have, and what should they, how should they apply the knowledge? We have then to provide students with the task for getting prepared for the just-in-time teaching, that they have the knowledge ready once we meet in the classroom. And once we meet in the classroom, then we can have the collaborative learning, we can have the group work, we can have the presentations and all that. Just-in-time teaching also requires feedback to the students. We cannot just give them work and they have then to deliver, maybe or maybe not. If they deliver, they expect feedback, we have to give them that feedback. We have also to see that just-in-time teaching is preparatory work for the students prior to the classroom, and students have additional work to do. It's additional work for the lecturers, and it's additional work for students, and we have to evaluate that. I jump then further to come to the conclusion. What does just-in-time teaching then bring? First of all, it's a supplement to the classroom teaching. It does not replace the classroom teaching. It's a supplement to the classroom teaching. It provides students with the knowledge they should have to follow then that what we are doing in the classroom. We can do it with a minimum of ICT. If we send emails, they send emails back. If we have a platform, it's even more sophisticated. We have to plan the just-in-time teaching within the overall lecture of the classroom teaching. We cannot do this separately because just-in-time teaching contributes to the classroom teaching. We have to design this as a self-study unit, of course, with the guidance of the lecturer. If they don't ask, then the students don't ask. But if they ask, we have to be available for some guidance. We have then, as lecturer, also to provide the feedback, and we have to see that that just-in-time teaching is additional workload also for the students, not just for the lecturers. What does it bring? We introduce students to special knowledge, what is not foreseen in the curriculum, or we can use it as introducing students to a specific knowledge which is not foreseen in the curriculum. That means we come out of the dilemma, we can really bring the students to the level what they need to know that they can find employment or that they are ready for the labor market. We can outsource preparatory work as well as topics of specific interest or importance. I'm almost. We can also outsource, what is very, very important, the lecturer-centered sequences of the lecture together with some task assignments. And I just go for one more. We have We have also found out that it's that we educate students to work in the self-study sessions, that they become driven to devote their time for specific topics there are in which are in their special interest. Okay, sorry, I'm not in time, but thank you very much.
Almost just in time. Thank you very much. In the interest of time, we lost a bit of time setting up the presentation, so I would suggest that we take questions afterwards, if that's okay with you. Thank you very much. If you want to sit here, we can probably arrange a chair. Our next speaker then is Sophia Osawe, and she's going to speak about experiences from an online educational program in public health, the Peoples-uni. Sophie, again, 20 minutes, and I will let you know when you have 5 minutes left. Do we have somebody to help setting up the presentation? Omo, could you help, please? Omo? Omo. Thank you. Is it coming up? Yeah.
My time?
Yeah, maybe, I mean, if you can start your... Ah, here we go. Very good. Thank you.
Merci.
Merci.
Thank you. So actually, I prepared my presentation to be 10 minutes, so I'm going to hopefully break the record today. So good afternoon, bonsoir. My name is Sophia Osawe, and I live in Nigeria. And I'm here representing Peoples-uni as a volunteer tutor. So in the next few slides, I'll be presenting my experiences under this online program. And these are the authors, just to acknowledge them. Just an introduction or maybe a refresher thing for people who are not aware what public health stands for. Public health deals with a combination of efforts that prevents a population, or that's like people, from diseases. Public health helps to promote, to prolong life, and therefore in general promoting good health in people. So this is involving different cadres of health practitioners, such as physicians and lab personnel and nurses. So to introduce what the program is all about, it's about improving health of people, as I mentioned earlier, and it requires creation of application of evidence-based practice and interventions. This can only be applied through educating practitioners on public health. So we all know there's a large need for public health, and especially places like Africa and other low and middle income countries. And Peoples-uni came along with the idea through Professor Richard Heller, who wanted to provide public health certification and knowledge through an affordable way. So this was done by establishing Peoples-uni back in 2008. So background on Peoples-uni, it was registered as a charity in the UK back in 2008. Back then, there were no physical offices. Everything was purely online. Trustees, IT groups, and tutors were all volunteers, which means none of them were paid. Volunteers came from 40 different countries all over the world. So Peoples-uni used and still uses open educational resources and allows us to offer very affordable, low-cost education and of quality. So this is just a structure that we have at Peoples-uni. I mentioned open educational resources, open source educational delivery, and all through online platforms, through using an internet. And the good thing is everybody is a volunteer from different parts of the world, from different academic institutions. The courses are designed with the use of modules, and we provide certificates in public health, diplomas, and an MPH, which is Masters in Public Health. So we provide skills for public health practitioners and collaborations as people come together on an online platform. In terms of providing skills for public health practitioners, we help to improve the health of the public through this program. We provide career development. As we all know, people need to continuously educate themselves and improve in their practices, and through collaborations to bring about best practices. So the courses are open education resource, which is widely available through the internet once you register. The course modules are designed under two main themes or groups. The first one is Foundation Science of Public Health and Public Health Problems. Each module has 5 modules. Each module has 5 topics which run one topic for 2 weeks. The discussion forums, which brings about interaction between the tutors and the students. And the assessment is based on final assignments at the end of each module. We use best practice e-learning with online facilitation by volunteer tutors. We have 2 semesters per year. The students can enroll with a maximum of 2 modules per semester. And we also provide individual CPD courses, which are continuous professional development courses. As I mentioned earlier, certificates, diplomas, and masters based on dissertation, which is a total of 20 credit load. Some numbers from the inception of the program to 2015, just last year, we had a total of 1,283 students registering for Peoples-uni courses. The bulk of them were from Africa, 72%, and 13% from the Indian subcontinent. We've had a total of over 200 volunteers from all over the world. Currently we have 120 volunteers as tutors and 100 MPH graduates. And this pie chart just shows the distribution of African, the bulk of our students, with West African carrying most, 46.5, followed by Eastern Africa. For the MPH award, we had a collaboration with a UK-based university, but that ended a few years back, but we're seeking for new African partners that we can collaborate with for a final Masters in Public Health award. In terms of my experience, my personal experience as a MPH graduate from the program, I've been an alumni since 2014. I also volunteer as a tutor for a course, evidence-based practice. Volunteer as a student support officer. This is helping people with the studies during the semester. And I also volunteer in some social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook. We have other collaborators, and I know many people have talked about NREN, so I won't take you through that. But just to mention about TERNET, the Tanzanian Education and Research Network that we collaborate with, that emphasizes on critical thinking and on evidence-based approach, all in public health. So what are our current developments and some of our future plans? I mentioned that we have an alumni of 100 MPH graduates from all over the world. We have them produce peer-reviewed publications that are available freely. The alumni also volunteer as tutors and other positions in Peoples-uni. We also have an open online course which has over 1,000 registered individuals. And this is the website for those who are interested to check it out. Some of the courses include public health, epidemiology, climate change. We also have future plans to develop or establish an African Institute of Public Health that will leverage the strengths that we already have on ground under Peoples-uni to partner with other people in Africa and facilitate education through modern IT infrastructure, something that we've heard a lot today. And this concept is inspired by the African Economic Research Collaboration, and the website is over there for those interested. We want it to be an alumni-led institution that identifies and prioritizes problems that are peculiar to the African communities, creation of forums for discussion that will interact African policymakers, which is very crucial for making changes in Africa, to build connections with other public health academics in the continent, and utilize social capital for the existing alumni platforms, and also network with other members. And also education, as I already mentioned, that we have open online courses that are available to as many people that would like, and totally free. So in conclusion, Peoples-uni has created an excellent platform for learning and capacity building in the continent of Africa and other continents. It also continues to give us opportunities, especially to students, to attain academic degrees. It has personally given me an opportunity to interact with other tutors, other professors all around the world, and get more ideas on how to solve problems in my own setting. And as an alumni in the forum, we interact and come about other research ideas that we can work on. So I'd like to acknowledge Professor Dick Haller, who came up with this concept and idea, and the entire team in Peoples-uni, and of course we know Omo and Omos Ungu from Terra, Tanzania. Thank you so much for your attention, and I have some beautiful pictures that I got online of Dakar.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Thank you. And you were very, very, yeah, exactly 10 minutes. Can I use the opportunity to ask you if you have any questions now for Sophia or Margaret? Yes, please, Benoît.
Oui, merci Catherine. Ma question s'adresse plutôt à Yobi.
Pardon?
Ma question s'adresse à Yobi.
I don't understand. Is to? To you. Oh, sorry, yes. Can I just hold that, Benoît, for a moment and ask if there's any other questions for... Tuzu has a question, yes, please, and the lady then in blue, but Tuzu first, please.
Thank you very much. My question is for Margaret. One of the environmental challenges of e-learning, and I think she mentioned that the teachers need to put in a lot more time. And we have seen elsewhere that this becomes a barrier unless there are incentives for them to do that. And this normally means financial incentives in underpaid systems. How have you addressed that in the case of Ethiopia, where I believe teachers are so severely underpaid?
This exactly is the problem. This is the problem in many emerging countries where lecturers are not well paid. They need a second job, a third job. This is very much from the European perspective, where we have time to be devoted for students. But I think it's very important that lecturers get better contracts, that their work will be better evaluated, that they really can devote their time for students. This is also in the classroom teaching. Very often lecturers are doing the lecture work for 1 hour and then they escape, and students will see them in the next week and they will not be available, they will not respond on emails, not on SMS, not on phone calls. And this is a crucial part. But we see also devoted lecturers here in all the countries. They really bring their time to the students. But we cannot expect that if the money incentive is not given. We have to see that they have to make their living, and therefore they need a second job, a third job, a fourth job. This is really a crucial point. I don't know how to solve this in Ethiopia or other countries.
Thank you. The lady in blue, please.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Ijama from University of Jos, Nigeria. I have two questions, one for Margaret and one for Sophia. Now, Margaret, please. I want to know if there's room for training for lecturers, because in Africa, some lecturers actually don't understand this IT e-learning thing. So I don't know in your country if there's room for training for lecturers, like someone talked about train the trainers, so that they can effectively utilize this e-learning and just-in-time teaching. That's for Margaret. And for Sophia, I want to know if there's room for more courses in your Peoples-uni. It's something really interesting. It's good to know that it's actually effective. We can have educational e-learning online. So I want to know if it's just public health or you have room for more courses. Thank you.
Coming to just-in-time teaching, I think this is primarily what individual teachers or lecturers want to do, to train the students, to make students employable after their graduation. From my own experience, I see that a lot of colleagues are not interested in doing that. They rather go rush to the classroom, they do that what they have to do, and after that they devote their time for research. Research is money, of course. And this is also, I see it as a responsibility of lecturers to be devoted to the students, because this is the next generation. And once we get old, we have to rely on them. They are then the politicians, they are the scientists, they are the decision makers. And if we don't train them properly, how can they handle then the future? And once we are old, we have to rely on them. Therefore, I think especially as lecturers, we have to take the responsibility for the next generation, and we have to devote our time. But we have to see also the situation that very often lecturers don't have the means, the monetary means to do that. But anyway, I think if they do it in the best way they can, even with a second and a third job, then I think they take the responsibility they have as lecturers. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your question, Abel. Yes, so all the courses the Peoples-uni are surrounding the theme, like public health. We don't go out of public health. But there are many courses under public health, and the curriculum keeps growing. We introduce new courses. In the beginning, we started with very few, about 4 or 5, but now we have over 10, and students can choose based on the 2 groups I mentioned during the presentation. So yeah, it's public health based.
Thank you. Okay, before we ask Tim to give his presentation, can I ask again if Diéyi Diouf is now in the room? Okay, last chance. Right. Tim, that means you carry it home. I will give you again 20 minutes, and then I'll let you know when you have 5 minutes left.
Well, I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm the last speaker before the gala dinner, so I'll try to go fast and try to keep it lively. So less like just-in-time teaching, more like Justin Bieber teaching. I'll wait for that to be translated. So with apologies to Mr. Molière and Mr. Voltaire, I'm going to use the luxury of having simultaneous translation and talk in English, if that's okay, but my slides are in French as a kind of compromise. I'm going to be presenting the World Development Report, the latest publication from the World Bank. It's our annual flagship report, which this year looks at digital dividends, or les dividendes numériques, and in particular asks 2 questions. Firstly, what are the mechanisms by which we can translate ICTs like research and education networks into digital dividends? And then secondly, ask the question, Why aren't those digital dividends being seen throughout the economy? The scale of the digital revolution is really enormous. These figures show a typical day in the life of the internet. Would you believe, for instance, that every day there are 207 billion emails sent? And that's just from the World Bank staff, it seems. And would you believe that every day there are more YouTube videos watched than there are people on our planet? If we feel that ICTs are not contributing to growth in productivity, perhaps we have our answer here. So the desire to communicate is huge, but where are the benefits? Where are the payoffs? In the report, we looked at three particular types of dividend or benefit from investment in digital technologies. Firstly, growth in our economies. Secondly, more jobs and better jobs for our citizens. And then thirdly, enhanced delivery of services by governments. And this corresponds to the different agents within society: firms, citizens, and governments. Let's look at three specific examples of how ICTs have proved to be transformational. This Guy Meng is a farmer in rural China. He is one of 5 million entrepreneurs that have set up businesses using Alibaba. So-called Taobao villages have been created in rural China. He trades in livestock online. He previously earned $200 a month as a handicapped farmer. He now earns over $50,000 a month. His life has certainly been changed by ICTs. Siprosa, a lady in rural Kenya, in Kendu Bay, close to Kisumu. Her life was also transformed by ICTs. She was the beneficiary of a grant received using M-Pesa, the mobile money system in Kenya, given by Give Directly, a charity which makes unconditional cash transfers to the poor. Her life was transformed by that gift. And she is one of the residents of this area of Africa where there are actually more mobile bank accounts than there are traditional bank accounts. Or take the case of these children, orphans, growing up in India. They benefited from India's digital ID system, Aadhaar, which now is about to register its 1 billionth citizen. 1 billion citizens in India given digital IDs within the space of a year and a half. Previously, because these kids lacked identity, because they'd been trafficked, they couldn't really participate as full members of Indian society. But with a digital ID, at least some of those disadvantages can be overcome. So what are the mechanisms then by which ICTs bring digital dividends? We argue in the report that there are three principal mechanisms by which ICTs actually act on the economy. Firstly, through inclusion, for instance, making it much easier to find information, much easier to be a part of a system. Secondly, through efficiency, reducing transaction costs. And then thirdly, through the creation of platforms. I think it was Margareth who talked about platforms for teaching. Platforms are also present in many other parts of the economy. Facebook, for instance, is a huge platform for sharing content. Uber is a great platform for making rides a little bit cheaper than they would otherwise be, and perhaps a little bit more convenient. So these are the three mechanisms. By enlarging the search base for information, by reducing the cost of information, and by the creation of public goods, information goods, such as platforms. So why have we not seen these benefits throughout the economy? Why are the examples that I've talked about relatively isolated? Why do we not see ICTs or the internet, for instance, in the productivity statistics or in the number of free and fair elections around the world? One reason is because of the continuing digital divide. There are perhaps surprisingly, still 6 billion people around the world that lack a broadband access to the internet. And there are still 4 billion people that still have no even narrowband access to the internet. So the digital divide is persistent. It's particularly persistent between developed countries and developing ones, between rural areas and urban areas, and especially between young people and old people. At least that's one area where Africa is on the right side of the divide, having, if you like, benefiting not only from digital dividends, but also demographic dividends. So what can governments do about this digital divide? We argue in the report that there are 3 basic policies that make a difference. Firstly, a market based on competition and competitive market entry. Secondly, public-private partnership and private sector-led growth. And then thirdly, efficient light touch regulation for telecommunications and the internet. We chose this picture as the cover page of our report this year because it really shows how these aspects can fail. These people in the picture are citizens of Somalia working in Djibouti, using their mobile phone signals to capture the signals coming across the border, across the bay from Somaliland. And one of the reasons they're doing that is because Somalia, with a competitive economy, 7 players in the market, has much lower prices than Djibouti or Ethiopia. A second way governments can address the problem is by thinking about the value chain of the network. And we think in terms of the first mile, the middle mile, the last mile, and what we call the invisible mile, management of spectrum, management of security. RENs in particular really focus on bottlenecks in the first mile and the last mile. I work in South Sudan, for instance, where there is literally no first mile. There is no internet access, certainly not by fibre, into the country. Satellite is the only option. Many RENs fall down here, the middle mile. It may be possible to provide good connectivity to capital cities, but rarely to provincial cities. But the second reason why digital dividends are not being more widespread is because the digital revolution needs good, sound, analog foundations. And there are risks associated with those. Although we can talk about innovation, efficiency and inclusion as being the mechanisms by which digital dividends are produced, there are also risks of concentration within the industry, for instance, firms that have a particular dominant position, risks of inequality. The internet tends to promote a winner-keeps-all sort of economy, and then there are risks of control. Autocratic governments are just as likely to adopt the internet as democratic governments. So, in order to translate digital technologies into benefits, we need not only to address the digital divide, but we also need to talk about the analog complements. And I think RENs, and I'll talk a little bit more about research and education networks later in the presentation, I think they really illustrate very well why you need to put into place the analog complements to support the digital society. This particular graphic talks about what we understand by the analog complements. Good governance, strong regulation, institutional reform. Secondly, skills, competences, especially in terms of digital literacy. And then thirdly, capable, accountable institutions. So RENs need all of these things. RENs need good governance structures. I work a lot in Somalia, for instance, where the Somali REN has been through many, many different changes and only recently established a more stable governance structure. RENs also need good digital skills, people with the commitment, the time and the know-how to build networks. And of course RENs need institutions, usually universities, behind them to support their growth. In the report we talk about policies which can be adopted by different types of countries, countries in emerging nations, countries in transition, and countries that are ready to use the digital technologies for transformation. So if we think about RENs are really at the heart of not only the development of individuals, not only the development of universities, but the development of whole regions. In Somalia, for instance, there's a fight going on between Al-Shabaab and the Somali government, a battle for mines. And RENs can really help in that battle for mines because they make available access to the world's educational resources. For too long, Somali citizens, Somali youth have been cut off from those resources. By the World Bank helping to work with Somalia REN, we're helping to win, if you like, that battle for mines. And RENs are also part of a much bigger ecosystem, a digital ecosystem. RENs help to train tomorrow's entrepreneurs. They help to train tomorrow's network engineers. And we see RENs as being part of a much wider ecosystem, a mobile and ICT ecosystem, which involves different players, governments, tech hubs, private sector, civil society. And in the report, we particularly focused on the development of tech hubs in Africa. We did a survey of the number of tech hubs in Africa. 115 was the number that we counted in middle of last year, but I'm sure there are many, many more now, including here in Dakar, where CITIC is one of the tech hubs that benefits in particular from World Bank funding. So to conclude, what do we need to do as an international community to make sure that we overcome the digital divide and make sure we put in place analog foundations to the digital society? We need a good model for internet governance. Our colleague from ICANN talked a little bit about that and how that's changing over time. We need to eliminate the obstacles that prevent us from creating a truly global digital market. And we need to use information in a way that will support sustainable development. We need to connect, we need to create platforms, we need to take a global approach to all of this. So that's the report. It's available at this website. In addition to the report itself, which is about 360 pages, it's in English, it's also in 6 other languages, including French and Arabic. As well as the report itself, there are about 50 or so different background papers that we prepared on looking at different aspects, as well as interviews, infographics, and other resources. If you're in the teaching business, and I know many of you are, I hope you'll find this a great resource for your future lectures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Please stay there. Do we have questions for Tim? Yes, Tuzu, please.
It's not a question, Cathrin, it's a comment. Can I make that? So that you can make another comment about it. It is, he's opening up the space we kind of hinted at this morning, that RENs have got a bigger role to play in our countries, much more than they do in places like Europe and USA. When you talk about access for information to the young generations in the Somalia region, that is totally outside the normal scope of NRENs, and yet we are saying that if we are going to be relevant in our continent, we need to take on tasks like that. And I'm just wondering if Tim could make a further comment on how this is likely to be received by the different players in this space. If he wants to, that is.
Should I respond now? Yeah, I mean, the work that we're doing in Somalia, I'm obviously very close to it. Somalia is my country at the moment. Yeah. Seems to be switched on. Yeah, okay. So, as I said earlier, Al-Shabaab is clearly in a battle for the minds of the young people of Somalia. And insofar as they're unemployed, insofar as they're disaffected, insofar as they have only limited access to information, then they're more likely to join Al-Shabaab than, say, join a telecom company. So I think what we're doing, and I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but I think what you're doing with RENS is very important. You're opening up young people to a world of free educational resources. You're opening up young people to a world of unfiltered content. You're opening up young people to many educational opportunities. For instance, if a Somali wants to travel abroad, the chances are they're going to have to make that application for a visa or application for a university place online. Without access to good internet at their local university or school, they're not going to be able to do that. So with RENS, you change people's lives. Don't ever underestimate the importance of what you do.
Wow. Okay. Yes, Steve, please. Wait till the microphone comes from the back.
Hello. Steve Song from NSRC. You mentioned, in particular, one of the examples you gave was India's Aadhaar program, which is this national ID program, which, I mean, has come under fairly substantial criticism in terms of its potential to rob people of their privacy. And I think you sort of touched on that when you touched on the potential downsides of ICTs. Can you maybe comment on what role you see for NRENS in terms of engaging in those kinds of policy debates, in terms of balancing not only expanding access but also protecting privacy and protecting people from the sort of the downsides of ICTs as these national research and education networks evolve?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I come from one of the countries in the world that looked at digital ID and decided we don't want it. And for the very reasons that you mentioned, the possible lack of control over personal privacy. Contrast two statements from 1993 and 2014. 1993, the New Yorker had this cartoon, "On the internet, no one knows you're a dog." 2014, The Economist wrote, "Today, Google knows not only that we're dogs, but what kind of fleas we have and what kind of dog food we like." In other words, I grew up in an era when it was presumed that the internet was going to do away with borders. In fact, the internet, if anything, has made those borders much more important. And I think we need to be realistic about the effect that the internet has on our lives. If we look at the share of free and fair elections worldwide, it's actually declined rather than grown over time. And if we look at the pattern for adoption of e-government worldwide, there are just as many autocracies as there are democracies that have adopted e-government. In fact, it's almost a kind of U-curve if you look at the likelihood of a government to adopt e-government. And of course, the kinds of uses that autocracies and democracies use e-government for are very different. In terms of autocracies, they use the internet quite effectively for filtering of content, for surveillance of citizens. So you're exactly right. But so there are risks associated with, if you like, the greater control that the internet gives governments over the lives of individuals. But at the same time, the internet also gives citizens a lot more freedom in terms of what they can do and what they can find out.
Well, thank you very much, Tim, for your presentation. I would like to thank all the presenters for their presentations and for keeping such good time. And before we end, I would like to remind you all that for this evening's gala dinner, you need this invitation. If you haven't got it yet, you need to pick it up at the registration desk, because it says "carte exigée à l'entrée," and I translate that as "without this card you don't get in." So please pick up your card. The buses are leaving at 6:30, or the first bus is leaving at 6:30. I have no idea when the other buses are leaving, so if you want to get onto the bus, be there first. And otherwise, I thank you again for your attention. I thank all the presenters. And I think we hold it for the moment, Beno. If you can ask the question afterwards, that would be good. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you good evening. Bye-bye.